to the 4th season of the Coaching Cast, your working from home managers club. Here to keep you company, remind you that you're not alone and that there's many of us outside of your current 4 walls, all trying to survive and thrive in today's business environment. So regardless of where you are working right now or whatever you do as a career, we've got something for you here at the Coaching Cast. I'm Lisa, founder of Grip Corporate Coaching, personal performance coach, leader and chief eye roller when it comes to all nonsensical corporate mumbo jumbo which suffocates rather than advocates.
And I'm Susie, sales and business coach at Future You Business Coaching, currently taking on my hardest coaching assignment to date, parenting that 2-year-old who doesn't take too kindly to being questioned.
In this podcast, we explore all things work-related, matters impacting you at work right now, presenting different topics each episode, which we discuss with some special guests along the way, sharing ideas, hints, and tips for you to take away and try for yourself. We really hope you enjoy listening. Today, we're talking about how your superpower at work is yourself and how you can build your self-belief. Stay with us and enjoy. So, before we get into it, Suze, happy birthday! Cheers to you!
Thank you very much. Cheers.
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 Cheers. So everyone listening, Susie and I have started on the booze early today because it is Susie's birthday. And, you know, any special occasion warrants a glass of fizz in our eyes. So we are cheersing to Suze today. It is her birthday.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Your pleasure. See, commitment to the podcast cause.
Absolutely.
Recording even on your birthday.
Birthday recording, but it's all good fun and actually a really good way to spend my birthday morning. I'm loving it.
Excellent.
So yeah, 37 today.
Whoop, whoop.
On the big 8th of Feb. Way better already than last year's birthday.
Oh, of course. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So in true Susie style, I spent my 36th birthday last year in hospital on my own, recovering from surgery because my appendix ruptured or erupted.
As I quoted at the time. So anyone who listened to my announcement of Susie going into hospital, this is right at the start of the launch of this podcast, as you know, because those of you that listened last week, remember it was our birthday. We were celebrating the Coaching Cast being 1. So we'd literally launched and then poor Susie was rushed into hospital with a ruptured appendix, or as I announced it on, you know, across all of our social media platforms and the podcast itself, and erupted. It erupted like Mount Vesuvius eruption. Yeah, I totally got that medical term incorrect. It's a good job I do this and not medicine.
So yeah, it's been a better day so far, and I hope it continues in that way than how I woke up to my birthday last year. And also, it's not raining here; it's dry. It's a nice, quite crisp February day, and that's one of my favourite type of winter days. Yeah, so I don't particularly enjoy having a February birthday, if I'm honest, because it's always kind of just a bit grey and. Yeah, but like, and I much prefer the summer. I wish I had a summer birthday sometimes.
Doesn't everyone wish they had a summer birthday?
Yeah, maybe I should have like a half birthday, like in August.
Well, my birthday is the 27th of December, and anyone who knows me knows how much I dislike my birthday. And I was often told by my parents that I could select a different day of the year to celebrate my birthday if I hated it that much, and that we could celebrate it in spring or summer. But I never took them up on that because I was like, but it's not my birthday though. So I never opted for that. I mean, the Queen has multiple birthdays, doesn't she? And I thought, yeah, it's just not for me. And one of my sister's birthdays is June. My dad's birthday's in June. So they've already like monopolised, in my opinion, the middle of the year, the summer. So yeah, honestly, I just have to stick with it. 27th of December it is. So it's a weird time of year.
Yeah, you've probably got a rougher part of the deal there than me, actually, in terms of February. But yeah, no, all good so far. So yeah, it's been a nice start. Recording with you today, going out for lunch later with my friend, and then I'm going out for dinner as well. Winning. I don't have to do any cooking today.
Great day.
So all in all, hopefully, yeah, a good day. And I get to drink a glass of fizz with you whilst we're recording. So
excellent.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes.
Perks of being your own boss. You can do whatever you like. You can drink on the job, which is what Susie and I do. This is also the bonus though, it must be for all of us who found ourselves working from home, because I'd love to know how many people have actually been drinking during the day while they've been working or on meetings. So I'm always dubious when people put themselves, when people mute their video on Zoom calls. I don't like it. I find it disconcerting. I'm like, what are you hiding? Why don't you let me know where you are and what you're doing? It's probably because they've cracked open like a bottle of Merlot at 11 in the morning and got a big glass of it sitting there with them. There's something hardcore about red wine drinking in the morning. I don't think I could ever do that.
Don't get me wrong, I don't mind a glass of fizz, but I would not be able to start drinking Merlot at 10:34.
No, there's something pretty hardcore about drinking red wine before midday. And I am in a part of the world where the winemaking industry is big, and South Africa loves it. And some wine tastings here start at 11 in the morning, if not earlier, actually. 10, I think they can start. Gosh.
And I'm jealous. That is one of my favourite things to do is wine tasting.
It's the best.
You've got me into South African wine as well.
It's so good.
Before. You've got me into it, and I really am enjoying some South African wine.
There's so many good South African wines. But wine tasting. I generally, if we go on a wine tasting and we're starting that early, I stick to the range of whites on offer. I can't dip into the reds at that time.
And then she gets more hardcore and does a Jaeger bomb about 2 p.m. So it all escalates.
2 p.m. 2 p.m. 12 p.m.
Oh,
what are you talking about? Anyway, Jägermeister was created, or is I think initially, isn't it a digestif? I'm sure it is, or is it an aperitif? Do you have it before you eat or after you eat? Anyway, Jägermeister has been sullied by the British public, and its generation of 21-year-olds or younger, as I was when I started drinking it, and been ruined by the Jaeger bomb with the Red Bull, because I'm almost certain that they created it to help digest your food after a meal. I mean, the stuff is vile.
I mean, well, the facts on this podcast literally just keep
serious
flowing.
It's all the menthol herbal benefits of a Jägermeister. You have it to digest your meal. I'm pretty sure it's a digestif, not an aperitif. I mean, to be quite honest, I never ever drank it with any thought of food in mind. So
no, I didn't. Not in my university years. That's
no, no, definitely not.
But well, maybe we'll have a little Jaeger bomb in a half an hour's time.
Thankfully, I don't think I've got any. I don't think I have any. I don't think there's any in this house.
Let's talk, instead of Jaegers being a superpower, should we talk about self-belief being a superpower?
Yes, let's talk about self-belief being a superpower. That's a lot healthier, lot better, a lot more better for you. That's not even a word, is it? It's a lot better for you.
Oh God,
she's pissed already. She's pissed already. Quick, let's talk before this whole episode unravels. The American-Canadian psychologist Albert Bandura explained self-belief as a person's belief in their ability to complete tasks and achieve their goals. It's thinking positively about yourself and your abilities and trusting that you can do it, that you can be successful, that you can overcome challenges, that you can recover from failure. The colloquial term that we use is confidence, which is derived from the Latin word fidere, which means to trust. Self-belief is your personal power. It's your superpower, but it can be difficult to keep charged up, especially when we experience difficulties and knockbacks. Our self-belief is constructed from a number of layers, each of which require continual checkups, care, and maintenance as we go through life, as we experience various changes and various events. The American coach and speaker, Tony Robbins, who I would be surprised you hadn't heard of, he's a pretty big character, he breaks these layers down into a number of different elements, including perspective, personal belief, including those tricky, unhelpful, limiting beliefs, which we tend to call our gremlins, self-love, healthy routines, and focus, to name only a few. Today, in this episode, Susie and I are going to explore a few of these elements in more detail and discuss how you can build your own self-belief. Susie, how would you rate your self-belief on a scale of 1 to 10, sort of like right now? So 1 being pretty darn low and 10 being fully, present. Yes, smashing it. Can you share with us that and also how you think, or how you would describe how your self-belief is constructed?
Yeah, so in terms of rating my self-belief right now, today, I'd probably say a 7.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's good.
As we mentioned in the intro, a year ago today, I was in hospital recovering from surgery and sepsis because my appendix ruptured. And probably my self-belief was like a 3, a 2 or a 3. And so the purpose, I suppose, of sharing that is actually, for me anyway, my self-belief absolutely does change depending on what's going on, what's happening, whether that's at work, whether that's personally, change, challenge, when stuff's going well. It is an ever-evolving thing for me, and I think it probably is for most people, but right now, today, it's probably a 7. And how my self-belief is constructed, do you know what, this is a really, really interesting question. So when I was prepping for today's episode and I saw this question, I was like, it stumped me a bit. I was like, oh, I don't actually know the answer to that, like, immediately. So normally when we're kind of talking about things we're going to chat about on the podcast episodes, I have kind of a vague idea of actually how I would answer it or what my response would be. For this question, it really stumped me and stopped me in my tracks. In my prep, I was like, that's a great question. I don't actually know. I've never thought about it before. So it was a really good prompt for me to kind of just pause and, I love reflection and actually just really think about, actually, how do I construct my self-belief? So the answers I kind of came to is firstly how I define my self-belief for me. So I've talked a little bit about how I'm quite a visual person before on the podcast. So for me, my self-belief is like my little mini cheerleader that sits on my shoulder or in me, and who's like, go Susie, you can do it, keep going. Like with those pom-poms, like,
yeah.
And so that's kind of me, for me, like what I see is my self-belief, so that when I'm wobbling, which I do, and I have moments where I'm like, oh my goodness me, what am I doing? I can't do this. That little cheerleader is there, like gunning for me and being like, no, keep going, you can do this. Probably in a very cheesy Tony Robbins accent. So like a mini coach, I suppose. And so how I then kind of construct my little mini cheerleader? Well, there's a couple of things that came to mind. So first of all, I think trying to push myself into situations I will find challenging to prove myself wrong is quite critical for me, so that I have a proof point and some evidence. Because again, I'm quite logical and quite factual as well in my approach. And I like getting reassurance and kind of strength from ticking things off, knowing when things have kind of moved forward and been achieved. So I'll give you an example. And Lisa, this is a story that you played quite a big part in. So when I tell you this story, you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember this. This. So it's when I took myself back to university in 2018 to train to become a qualified coach. And Lisa and I were working together at the time, and I knew she was a coach. And I obviously wanted to go and do that. And I invested both financially and from a time perspective to do essentially a degree level qualification to become a coach at the University of Salford. And honestly, it absolutely floored me in terms of my self-belief that I could do this, because I hadn't gone into the world of academia for so long. It'd been nearly 20 years. And I was not used to this world. I'm very much like a practical, action-orientated person. I'm not great at research and spending lots of time researching into different things. I wouldn't call myself particularly academic. And I also don't enjoy reading very much, which, again, I've discussed a bit on this podcast previously. So the fact that I was doing this, firstly, kind of blew my mind a little bit. And secondly, really kind of brought up some of those feelings around my own self-belief that I could do this. But now I'm sat here, I have my own coaching business. I am a qualified coach. I have quite a good kind of qualification, ILM qualification, which took me just under 2 years to study for. And I was pregnant at the time, and I was working in London. I live in Manchester, so I was commuting at the time as well. So there was a lot going on, but I did it. I sat down, I wrote all of those assignments. I coached all of those people who helped me on my journey. And I've got that proof point now that I actually can do it. And so that gives me really good reassurance sometimes when I'm in situations with amazing coaches, amazing professionals who've done it for a really long time. And I kind of get a touch of the imposter syndrome, which I know we've again talked about before. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not meant to be here. I don't have enough years experience. I don't have this. I don't have that. And actually, no, I've done it. And I take that confidence from that story and that experience where I push myself. And I absolutely did push myself in that situation and came out the other end. And so, yeah, for me, that's quite a critical one in terms of helping construct some of that self-belief, for sure. So, yeah, I don't know if you remember that experience.
I do remember it. I remember it hugely. And your continual, but I can't write though. And I was like, you can write. You went to university and you wrote then and you got your degree. So what can you learn from that experience? Because you've done it before, you're doing it again. You can write. And you're like, I can't write. I was like, you can. And you did. So yeah, I do love that story. But I think it is such a fantastic example of ways in which we can support ourselves to build our self-belief and to keep it maintained and to nurture it. And that is to recall when we've overcome challenges, when we've been successful, because I like you, and I do think this is true of a lot of people, my self-confidence and my self-belief goes on a roller coaster ride all the time. And I think actually I've experienced that more acutely with more regular change and a lack of consistency since starting my own business, going freelance as a coach, stepping out of the safe structure and the structure that I'm aware of, the environment I know of a corporate workplace. I definitely think my self-belief has taken much, much more effort to manage and maintain at all times. Yeah. And I think it's because actually the reason for that is because if I'm going to answer the question of how my self-belief is constructed, it is a big equal share between how I view myself and how others view me and the feedback I get from those around me. So I believe in myself because actually making reference to actually one of these layers that Tony Robbins talks about, self-love, I actually really like myself. Like that is true. I do like myself a lot. I'm happy with how I am. I enjoy what I've become. And I don't think we're very good at saying that out loud because as a Brit, there is an element of, does that sound arrogant? Does that sound, which I do think in other cultures, that's just not interpreted in that way. I know whenever I've spent a lot of time in the US, that's just normal. That's how people talk about themselves. And it's absolutely fine. And I've always loved that because I just think, yeah, good for you. But I like who I am. I'm very proud of who I've become over time. And the way in which I've evolved and changed based on my experiences. And actually some of those experiences have been really tough. And again, I think that's probably contributed to how much I believe in myself because I know I'm strong and that I can survive things because of incidences that's happened in my life. So I've suffered a lot of family illness with close family members like my mum and my sister, which occurred for me in my young teenage years. and which were really difficult to deal with at the time. My parents have been, got divorced. I found that very challenging. But I think knowing that I got through all of it, that I have survived it, that actually I've learned so much from it, and that the relationships I have with my family are very strong despite all of that, gives me actually a lot of self-belief, because it proves to me that I can, as I said, overcome difficulties, challenges, that I am resilient. And so I do trust myself in that respect. I do think that's where a lot of my self-belief comes from. But going back to that point of, I do think there's quite a substantial contribution of external factors, which is, I do appreciate the feedback, the perspective, the recognition from other people. And that helps me to actually, I suppose it contributes to my self-belief. I don't want to use the word it validates me, but I think actually, if it, in some ways, I think it does, which isn't particularly healthy. I'm going to call that out now. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, because actually for you to, I think, to be really confident consistently and to really help with maintaining your self-belief, the more you can rely on yourself for that, the better that you will be, because you will be much more independent. And that's where you can, coming back to Albert Bandura, the American Canadian psychologist, that comes back more to his point, which is actually it's not just about a person's belief in their ability to complete tasks and achieve goals. What's missing from that is by themselves. Because actually that self-efficacy, I can do it on my own. It's irrelevant about whether, anyone else is there, the support. Yes, it's helpful, but actually I think the more that you can become self-reliant, the stronger you are. So as I said, I'm sort of hesitant to say validation, but I know, if I'm being brutally honest, that there is probably an element of that in there, which probably then plays into a subject we will come on to, which is that gremlins piece, which, I know you described having a cheerleader. I have that, but I do have a critique as well, who is sitting there quite regularly. And I think the two of them often love to have a bit of an argument about how good I actually am. I like it to be banned. So it'd be nice if it was a bit more jovial than it actually is. But yeah. So
I think, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go for it.
I think just your point around external relationships is a really interesting one, because one of the things that also came to mind when I was thinking about my answer to how my self-belief is constructed is I know that I'm very sensitive to other people's energy, and that other people's energy rubs off on me. So if I am around really high energy, positive, optimistic people, I really feed off that in terms of my own mood, my own responses and reactions. Equally, if I'm around somebody who's perhaps a little bit more in a negative space, I feel that as well, and that can impact me. And so I think one of the things that I consciously try and do is I try and surround myself with more positive energy. So whether that's people who build you up, whether that's colleagues, people that you work with, mentors, friends, family, etc. Like, I try and really spend time with those who have a positive influence on me and not those who I find don't. And then also who I follow on social media. So I didn't used to do this before, but my friend told me about this and I was like, that's actually really useful. Is we spend so much time on social media. We do, because we have a big active presence on Instagram. So we are on Instagram quite a lot, the two of us. And actually, I found that I was starting to probably not follow some of the right people that would really help me in terms of building and helping me develop and create my own self-belief about, actually, I might not look like that, but there's still really great stuff here to be celebrated and believed in. And I think for me, I've been through a lot of physical change in the last year, because I've had quite a lot of physical health issues. So my self-confidence wasn't particularly great, because I've also had a baby over the last few years as well. But actually, I started following more, in that example, more body positive people and influencers. And so I surrounded myself with more positive energy, more positive kind of narratives. And actually, that I haven't really thought about it in terms of the way that I was feeling from that perspective for a while, it's all actually been okay and felt all right. And I think that does play those external relationships, whether that is those kind of fake relationships on social media or actually those in-person connections that you have with those around you, can have quite a big impact on how you construct your own self-belief. It does for me anyway.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. I actually, yesterday, it's interesting you say, I've turned the notifications off of all social media platforms on my lock screen. So if my phone's locked, I don't know what's going on. Because actually I was finding constantly having my phone's lock screen pinging with various notifications across Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. It was just too much. I just wasn't always aware of it and it was driving me mad. So I've had to really look at how I manage myself around social media, and actually in the same way as you've described, I've had to look at who I follow, why I follow them. And as soon as actually I start following anyone who I realise are kind of triggering unhelpful thoughts or feelings, I just unfollow them. I just think, do you know what, it's just not worth it. Because, you know, in a similar way to the social virtual relationships, I do think it's the same with physical ones as well, as you've mentioned. And I do think actually a lot of my self-belief comes from the fact, as I said, I do have self-love, but actually I feel loved by others. And I think actually that's often really made me feel secure, comfortable in my own skin. The fact that I do have people that care about me, love me, support me, whether that's my family, my best friends, my husband. And then in a work context, again, you know, I've got some great individuals, both, you know, in terms of colleagues, yourself, Suze, you know, you're a huge support to me, my coach, my business mentor. You know, it's important to have those resources there to ensure that actually when you yourself may be struggling with your, I think, self-belief and needing support, to just give it a bit of care, give it a bit of love, that you've got the resources there available to you to do that. Because I do think that helps you to strengthen yourself so that you can move on without anybody else. If you know, going back to that point of like really focusing on trying to be self-sufficient, but it's impossible, I think, to be able to, for me anyway, to just be able to do that all the time.
Oh, you know? 100%. It is impossible. And I think if you're thinking that you need to do that every day, all the time, that's not what we're A, suggesting here, and B, that's not reality. Like, let's be real. You know, each one of us, myself and Lisa's talked about it as well before, they're like, we wobble. That's life. We go through ups and downs as a roller coaster. And it's okay for that to be the case and to happen. But it's about how you look and recognize that and continue to build and reactivate that cheerleader.
Yeah. And I think it's always about perspective as well, isn't it? And I, you know, in terms of when those wobbles occur, enabling yourself to understand and recognize what's happened, what's going on, why it's occurred, and not allow it to tarnish everything. Because I know that in itself is a skill. You know, just because one thing's gone wrong doesn't mean everything's wrong, doesn't mean that you're wrong, doesn't mean, you know, it's trying to contain it and just look at it in its own moment in time and recognize it for what it is, to be able to then deal with it, learn from it and move on without letting it undo the whole construction of what you've put together. Yeah. So on that point then, because we started to talk about those wobbles, what do you think the biggest challenges are to maintaining our self-belief?
I mean, I think for me anyway, it's slightly different in work and at home. So I think at work, wow, I've transitioned my career. Same as you, I used to work in a big corporate organisation. I did for a long time. I had a big system around me, big support network. I took a leap of faith and set my own business up as a coach and trainer. And so my biggest challenge is keeping that faith, is those wobbles from a work perspective, in that I have something that's meaningful to other people, that helps them solve a problem, and that I'm good enough to do it, and that people want to pay for it. And that's my continual wobble from a work perspective. I think for a lot of small business owners, that's probably something that happens for a lot of us. And finding that inner strength to just keep backing myself, that you just kind of keep going. And it is tough, and having that faith, I think that when one door shuts, which they do, it's happened to me in my career so far of running my own business. Doors shut, they shut quite frequently, quite regularly, but having that faith that actually another will open at some point, and that will be right for you. And so that's absolutely my biggest challenge, is that inner cheerleader from a work perspective now has become more critical in helping me believe and have self-belief. But equally, I think you mentioned it there's somebody on the other side, that gremlin that's on the other side, which can also be a big voice, because it's down to me now to make everything happen and to do it well, and to create success in terms of this business and this leap that I've made in my career. So that's, I think, it from a work perspective for me. In terms of my, I think, home life, I mean, there's a couple of things. Obviously, I'm a working mum, and any working mums out there in our CBB population, I know there's a few of them, believing you are doing a good job whilst trying to maintain everything else in your life, whether that's your relationship with your child or your children, your work, relationship with your partner, relationship with friends and your family, making sure the house is not a tip, that there's food in the fridge, that we know what we're having for dinner, that the washing's been done. I mean, the list can go on. The dog's been walked. I go on and on. I think I listen a lot to Rob Beckett and Josh Whitcomb Parenting Lockdown podcast, and they refer to it as the mental load. So, there's a lot there. And that's some of my kind of biggest challenges, and my self-belief that actually it's okay. I'm doing okay. I've got it. I'm continuing to kind of hold it together. And for me as well, and this is very personal to me, I live with type 1 diabetes. I've had diabetes for nearly 13 years this year. And that's a big adjustment, a big change. And it changes sometimes hourly, daily, in terms of what I need to do and how I need to manage that long-term condition. And so I have to believe that I can do it, because there have been times in my diabetic tenure so far where I actually thought, especially when I was pregnant, I can't do this anymore. This is changing so often and so rapidly. I can't keep up, and I don't know how to sort this out, and I don't know how to do it. So that plays quite a big part, I think, in terms of some of my challenges in maintaining my self-belief from a more personal perspective and at home, because that's probably the thing that changes so most frequently in my life, that I have to kind of keep up with.
So I was thinking about this one in respect of how I answered the first question we talked about, which is, how is it constructed? So I was talking about it in terms of, actually, I've admitted a big part of how I've constructed my self-belief is what others think of me. It's actually the same thing that can undo my self-belief, is what others think of me. I was just thinking that. I was like, it's kind of a contradiction, but it's true. But I think that's even why it's so important to stress. The more you are clear about how you feel and think and view yourself, the stronger you will be, because that way, what changes externally from you will have less of a negative impact, because you can never control what other people think or say. They will think and say whatever they like if they so choose to do so. And you can only just be you and continue to do what you're doing and what you think is right. So I know when my self-belief has been challenged, it's based on either what someone has said to me, and I'm thinking very much in a work context here. It's based on what someone has said to me that has really challenged the way in which I view myself or how I believe I've done something. And I was thinking about it in terms of that is difficult in itself, because when it challenges your belief system around yourself, when it challenges the way in which you've constructed who you are, that is quite a difficult thing to deal with. but it's even more difficult if you're not even clear on that from your own perspective. So I think you do have to be clear about, you know, what's important to you, what you think you represent, what you love about yourself. Because then when people start picking at that, if you've managed to build that confidence around who you are and you feel good about it, it's a lot easier to challenge back, or even just to listen and throw it away. God, I say my self-belief is definitely constructed by what others think of me, but it can equally be pulled down by the same things. And I do think I want to be liked by everyone. I'm not very good in so much that I know that there are people I don't like and I'm fine with that, but I'm not good in return. So actually, I won't like someone, but I don't want them to not like me, which makes no sense whatsoever, by the way. But I definitely am one of those sorts of people, because I want people to think I'm great. I want people to only see the good stuff. So if people don't like me or think negatively about me, I can find that quite difficult if I'm aware of it, because I will just want to fix it. Let's talk about this then, this personal beliefs bit. So how do we tackle our gremlins when they're keen to bring us down?
Well, I think first off, it's probably important to think about why we have gremlins, what their purpose is, because we do all have them. And actually, we develop them to protect ourselves. That's why we have them. Yeah. And a lot of that is actually, when you read about it, linked back to something in our childhood quite a lot of the time. Or something that's happened to us in quite an early experience. Perhaps that's an early experience in your career, early experience in your childhood. But they kind of embed themselves into the way that we think. And so, for example, if you've got like a gremlin there, and I have this sometimes a little bit, you know, if you're thinking like everything I do has to be perfect, it has to be absolutely spot on, it can't go out the door unless it's perfect. How that manifests in terms of your behavior will be that you'll become more risk adverse, because you'll want everything to be perfect. And so you won't be as good at being like, okay, it's broadly done, but it's okay, and off you go. And I talk a lot about this with my coaching clients, actually, the phrase done but not perfect, and being kind of comfortable with that. So yeah, that is kind of what their purpose is. They do have a purpose. So I think it's good we just kind of recognize that. But in terms of your question around how we tackle them when they're holding us back, for me, I distract myself. So if I get a limiting thought, or a gremlin, a limiting belief that pops into my head, I try my hardest to not dwell on it too much and just think this is just a belief, and actually stop this. And actually, where has this come from? Has somebody said something to me? Have I been in a situation which triggered me? And what can I learn from that? So, I was in a situation a few months ago which really triggered me in terms of some of my experiences in my career, actually, so far. And I didn't know that about myself until I was in it. And I was like, wow, I've learned something there. And I know that's kind of like not true now. So I think catching it where you can, having awareness of them, that they're there and they're coming in, and reflecting then on, okay, what does this gremlin telling me? Why has this gremlin suddenly appeared? And what do I do with this now? And then the other thing I think is then once you do that is practicing and reinforcing the opposite narrative as much as you possibly can to disperse that gremlin and that belief. And that's what builds your own self-belief. The ability that you can do that and work on doing that. We don't always get that spot on. It is an art to do that, and you have to practice it. But that is an important step. And for me, little thing I've got, so in my office, and we end this podcast with this very statement, which is, you've got this. On my windowsill in my office where I'm sat, I have got a picture and it says, you've got this. So if I'm having a wobble, probably more at work than in my personal life, I just glance up at it and it's there, and it reminds me. Again, I'm very visual, so that works for me. And we end the podcast on it because we generally believe that actually you have got this, and that you can generate that momentum, that movement, that belief from yourself, and that inner cheerleader to move you forward. And so I'm really, really big on creating that awareness of when those kind of limiting thoughts come into your mind, reflecting on them and thinking, okay, where the hell has this come from and why is that? And actually, I need to practice and reinforce now that those are actually beliefs. They're not necessarily fact. And I need to kind of think about disproving this to myself. And for me, that's looking at my mantra and being like, no, I absolutely have got this. So that's how I tackle my gremlins, which helps me kind of curate more of my own self-belief. What about for you?
I think very similar to you. I think it's doing all of those things. I think the other for me is reminding myself that actually I have faced into challenges before and proven that I can overcome them and achieve. And I do think that continues for me to be a continual, really helpful exercise, which is to go back and look at all of the times that I've achieved success. And to be honest, that goes right back for me to even school, because school for me is still very vivid in my mind about my successes, things I found difficult, ways in which I scaled obstacles, fixed problems. So I can go as far back as that, but generally, as a quick reference, I will just look at it and go, this is what you've had to face into before. This is what you did, and you did it. You achieved it. So you are capable, you can do it, and you'll do it again. And I think whenever I've got that little negative gremlin having a go at me, telling me that I can't do it, I'm not capable, I'm not qualified enough, I'm not clever enough, I'm not experienced enough, I'm like, no, that's not true though. And just stopping and just, if you like, it's even like little ticking things off. In some ways, if I'm really struggling with it, I will actually just take myself back to a memory of achieving something really, really important to me. So like, I remember during my first coaching qualification, I had my final assessment, and because part of the qualification was I had to coach people and be assessed by part of the qualifications team, which was always terrifying. And I had failed the previous one, so it's a retake, and I passed the retake with a distinction. Well, you know, I remember exactly how I felt at the time. I remember the room, the person I was coaching, where I was, you know, I remember how I felt when I achieved it. And I do find that a helpful exercise to go back to that and go, that, you know, remember how you felt, remember what you did, now go do it again. You know, it's that kind of recreation of success, because I do think that really helps. And it gets you into that mindset of, I'm going to do it, I'm going to smash it, I'm going to achieve, I'm going to be successful. I also think, you know, there's loads of quotes out there, and I can't remember quite one off the top of my head, but there's a lot out there that says, look, you know, if you don't challenge yourself, you'll never grow, you'll never move forward, you'll never achieve more than what you've achieved today. Now, you might be perfectly happy with what you've achieved today, and that's absolutely fine. That's not a critique on that. But if you know there are other things you want, sitting here, not taking action isn't going to get you anywhere. So actually, if you want something, you have to be prepared to go get it. And that will mean at times you'll have to challenge yourself and push yourself out of your comfort zones. And only when we do that do we learn. And that feeds self-belief for me. That's what builds it, because your perspectives change, your focus changes. You know, I do know actually when I challenge myself is often when my self-belief gets a boost, because it's that kind of, you know, leg up to go, look at you, you're going for it, you're trying things out. I'm a trier. I am a trier. I always say I'm a trier. I'm also trying, some people may say, but I am a trier. I like to give things a try. I do my best. Can't ask more from me than that. And I have to admit, that has come from my dad. So my dad and my mum, actually. Robin, who you guys met in season 2. They're both the same. They both will always just try best. Try best. Yeah. At least you've given it a try. You've not avoided it. You've given it a go. Just do your best and see what happens.
It's a great mantra.
You know.
Well, just talking about quotes there, I have actually got a quote for you here.
Oh, good.
This is about self-belief. Okay. It's from a guy called, I need to say this right, Rob Kiyosaki, I think that's how you say it. But his quote is,
That's
it's not what you say out of your mouth that determines your life. It's what you whisper to yourself that has the most power. And that's absolutely what we're saying here. That cheerleader is that person who is whispering to you against that gremlin. So you've got the two on either side of your shoulder, one being your cheerleader saying, go Lisa, you can do this. Woo! And then you've got the gremlin on the other side who's like, nah, mate, don't think so. Like, what are you doing? You know, no, that's not meant to be. You're not meant to be there, etc., etc. But actually, it's which one we choose to listen to, and that gives us that most power when we're whispering our thoughts to ourselves, and which one has the biggest voice that will really help determine our self-belief. So, yeah, find your inner cheerleader, your inner whisperer, that's for sure. It's now time for this week's Workplace Shame. This is where we share an embarrassing workplace story from one of our listeners or from one of us if times are desperate. But this week's story is from a CBB, so thank you so much for sending in and allowing us to share. So the story goes something like this. I was driving an hour and a half for an interview for a new job. I was waiting in reception whilst my interviewer and potential new boss came down to greet me and sort my access to go through reception, etc., etc. My nerves were building by now, but I was wearing a lovely new wrap dress, which tied at the side, and I was feeling good. I also had a bag with me, which was quite heavy with my laptop and books in it. And I'd placed it on my lap to the side of my leg whilst I was sat down waiting for them to come and greet me. When I stood up to greet my potential new boss, the bag pinned my dress down and the tie at the side, which resulted in it starting to unravel. So there I was trying to greet them both whilst fumbling around, trying to awkwardly retie my dress back up at the side whilst they stood awkwardly waiting for me to do it. Hopefully that's not why I got the job.
Did anything drop out?
No, I don't think so. But I think the dress was starting to unpeel itself at the side because it was a wrap dress. And yeah, I think it was saved, but not to the point where people didn't notice what was going on. Oh my God, that is really, really.
Oh, that is so funny.
Oh, bless you, CBB, for that situation.
But congratulations on getting the job. Excellent.
Exactly. You got the job.
Woo. Well done. That is well funny. Thanks for sharing.
That is a great story. Thank you so much for sharing. So if you have a workplace shame that I don't know, you might be keen to get off your chest or just want to share with us for bants, have it featured in this season, then just email it to hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk, or you can message us on Instagram by searching The Coaching Cast and send us a DM. Don't worry, all workplace shame stories will remain anonymous.
So it's time for Bullshit Bingo, CBBS. This is where, as you know, we call out phrases which get commonly used in the workplace, which make us cringe. Today's Bullshit Bingo is actually a whole sentence which one of you have kindly shared with us and which apparently actually happened in their workplace recently.
Oh, so I love one that's just happened in someone.
I know. So this actually happened. Okay, so this is a whole sentence, not just a word.
I'm excited for this.
So here it is. So we've agreed that I'll prepare an Aunt Sally with gaps. It may be pushing the envelope slightly, but if you prime the pump, we should be good to go. So Susie, unpack that one for us.
I mean, I'm just stunned into silence. What?
What's an Aunt Sally?
First of all, Aunt Sally, I have no idea what an Aunt Sally is.
I thought that was a pub game, Aunt Sally. Pub game.
I thought it was like a frozen dessert brand. No, I don't know. Like, what the hell is Aunt Sally with gaps?
I'll prepare an Aunt Sally with gaps.
Can you read it again? It's so good.
Okay. So we've agreed that I'll prepare an Aunt Sally with gaps. It may be pushing the envelope slightly, but if you prime the pump, we should be good to go.
But if you prime that pump, we should be good to go.
Pump. I mean, that sounds dodgy.
Come on. That just needs game changer and winning hearts and minds added in. And then it's literally the perfect scenario.
Bit of low-hanging fruit. Oh,
absolutely.
My goodness. Well, CBB that sent this to us, thank you so much.
Brilliant.
That's a cracker.
It's
and
so good.
I don't know whether I'm sorry you work there or whether actually I'm jealous. Sounds bloody brilliant if you work with this sort of stuff.
Oh,
Jesus.
Absolutely love this one. This is now in one of my top
of all
faves.
Time. Yeah.
Because it's just a whole sentence of bullshit bingos, not just a single word, phrase, a whole sentence. We've taken it to the next level here.
It's crazy.
And I am impressed. I love it. Keep them coming, guys. We need all your bullshit bingos, please.
We do, yeah. So if you can top this bad boy, if you've got a sentence that you can send through, then yeah, send it through to us at hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk, or you can always message us on Instagram and yeah, let us know if you've got anything that's as good as that. So we're coming to the end of today's episode where Susie and I have been talking about growing your self-belief, a very complicated subject, as I'm sure you will agree. So we've got some tips and recommendations for you based on what we've discussed today. So these are things that we do that we find help ourselves. The first one is remind yourself of your successes. So take yourself back to those moments. This is a great one to get perspective around your self-belief and to refocus and really ensure that you are being real in your success, that you're not getting stuck in that negative space, that you're giving yourself your own facts, actually, of how fantastically capable you are. Number 2, be aware of your gremlins. So we all have them. It's a part of life. They're there to protect us, as Susie says, but sometimes they can just go a bit too far. They can be too overprotective and unhelpful. So just be aware of them, be aware of what they are saying to you and check them for facts. So be really clear about where is this coming from and why. And if you can't find any actual facts, then it's the indication that it is just coming from you and may not be particularly helpful. The third thing to really counteract your gremlin is to create your own cheerleader. So whereas your gremlin can be unhelpful, your cheerleader is your helpful individual. So really create your own and create a new mantra for yourself that your cheerleader can say to you in those moments that can be a lot more helpful. And then the fourth thing is really think about your environment. So your self-belief is constructed by many layers of different things. Susie and I shared actually how the environment we're in, the people we surround ourselves with, that includes virtual. So we talked about social media, actually can be a contributing factor to what we think about ourselves. So just be mindful of that and look at making changes where they're useful. As well as those top tips, we've got some questions to ask yourself this week, and they are surrounded around that particular first top tip of reminding yourself of your successes. So if you are struggling with your self-belief, here's something for you to try. Think back in your past and write down each achievement, success up to this current point along a timeline. So really make it very specific and an objective in that you can really see those particular points on a timeline of when you've been successful. What skills and strengths you have which enabled you to achieve these things. Reflect on what you have written and acknowledge your capabilities. Number 2, repeat the same exercise and identify any challenges or difficulties that you faced and had to overcome. What did you do to overcome these? And again, acknowledge your capabilities in being able to do so. So lastly, what can you utilise from this learning to support you now in your current and ongoing success? So don't worry if you can't remember our top tips from today. All top tips and ideas will be on our Instagram at The Coaching Cast this week, and you will be able to find all of our previous top tips from other episodes and seasons on our grid.
We hope you've enjoyed today and have some new ideas to take away and try for yourselves. If you have any questions, thoughts or feedback, we love hearing from you. So contact us at hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk or on Instagram at The Coaching Cast, or on our brand new website, which is still out there in the World Wide Web of thecoachingcast.co.uk, where you can also sign up for updates for new episodes and exclusive content.
Your support means everything. Therefore, if you like what you've heard today and would like to help us grow the podcast, please do us a favour and follow us on Instagram. Leave us a review on the Apple Podcast app. That's the most important. And subscribe to future episodes wherever you listen. Don't forget, you can also watch each of our episodes on our YouTube channel by searching for The Coaching Cast. And you will also find all links to watch episodes via the website, www.thecoachingcast.co.uk.
In next week's episode, we're discussing how to get what you want at work, whether that's a promotion, a sideways move, or a pay rise. So make sure you stay tuned for that episode. It's going to be a good one.
We both love music and use it to motivate and energize us. So we like to finish each episode with our personal song recommendation, giving you positivity and energy as you launch into the next meeting. It's my choice this week, and I have chosen a bit of a Motown classic. And actually, it sounds really negative, this song, but it's so upbeat. I absolutely love it. It's called The Love I Lost by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes.
Oh, I'm going to go and check it out now.
I absolutely love it.
Okay.
So thanks for listening, everyone. We hope you have a great week. And remember, it's our Coaching Cast mantra. This is what we always say to help us to get through the week and to build our self-belief. You've got this.